Hey folks, Garrett Fisher here. I need to tell you about this absolutely mind-blowing podcast, Acting President, that's been keeping me up at night. It's about James Bennett, a former governor starring in a hit Sunday night TV show about overthrowing the government, and then his actual former chief of staff approaches him to do it for real. The line between fiction and reality completely disappears when these course correction rallies start popping up everywhere. Is it brilliant marketing or something more sinister? The parallels are insane. Trust me, this is the political thriller you didn't know you needed in your life. Acting President, available now wherever you find podcasts.
Calaroga Shark Media.
From Washington, D.C., where half-baked isn't just an ice cream flavor, this is Ballot.
That's right, I'm Patrick Gutfield here to serve you the latest scoops from D.C. and other terrible hacky jokes. So the co-founder of Ben & Jerry's got kicked out of a Senate hearing for yelling, "Congress pays for bombs," which honestly sounds like a rejected flavor name. Right next to Chunky Monkey and Cherry Garcia, we'd have Congressional Complicity Crunch. Ben Cohen, and yes, that's actually his name, not just half of an ice cream brand, stood up 15 minutes into a hearing about healthcare and decided to make his point about military spending. Because nothing says let's talk about Medicaid cuts like getting escorted out by security. Cohen told News Nation that Congress has been cutting money for healthcare for poor kids while using those savings to bomb other poor kids in Gaza, which is a pretty stark way to frame foreign policy. But hey, the man knows how to get attention. He's spent his whole career making ice cream flavors that sound like they should come with political bumper stickers. This is the same guy who got arrested in 2018 for protesting F-35 fighter jets. Apparently, when you've made millions selling frozen dairy products, you feel obligated to have opinions about military aviation. He also created a Kamala's Coconut Dream flavor during the election because nothing says democracy like themed desserts. Cohen called Israel's actions in Gaza genocide with our bombs and said Americans have become complicit through military aid, which is quite the statement from someone whose biggest geopolitical crisis used to be whether to add more chocolate chips to cookie dough. He pointed to the destruction of hospitals, universities, and schools as evidence, while acknowledging that hostages should be returned, but rejecting that as justification for the military campaign. And here, I thought the most controversial thing about Ben & Jerry's was when they discontinued that flavor with the fish-shaped chunks. The hearing was supposed to be about Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but Cohen made it clear his protest had nothing to do with Bobby Kennedy. No, this was about defense spending versus healthcare spending. Because when you're the ice cream guy, you apparently get to decide what congressional hearings should really be about. A Kansas City barbecue joint with 87 years of history is closing at the end of May, and it's all because of, well, let's call it the circle of demolition. Danny Edwards Boulevard BBQ on Southwest Boulevard is shutting down after being displaced more times than a witness in a mob trial. The restaurant saga reads like a Kansas City version of The Little Engine That Could, except instead of, "I think I can," it's more, "I think they're going to tear this down for a parking lot." Again, the current owners, Joel and Susan Bremer, say they might cook from home or get a food truck, which honestly sounds like they're contemplating becoming BBQ nomads, wandering the streets with a smoker attached to their car. Joel Bremer bought the place from Danny Edwards in 2018, and Danny passed away about 4 years later. Now Danny's widow, Priscilla Edwards, owns the building and reportedly wants to sell it to the marijuana dispensary next door. So we're potentially losing a barbecue institution, so From the Earth can expand their earth, I suppose. Here's the kicker. This restaurant has been displaced twice already. Big Jake Edwards started the whole thing downtown in 1938. Then his son Danny took over, moved it because the city wanted a parking garage, moved it again because developers wanted the spot for power and light district parking, and now it might get demolished again for more parking. Joel Bremer summed it up perfectly. It would be ironic if they wanted to bulldoze this place for a parking lot, given our history. Ironic? Sir, at this point, that it's not ironic, it's a tradition. This restaurant has been chased around Kansas City by parking lots like Tom chasing Jerry. The place was famous for the Big D, a brisket sandwich on rye with Swiss cheese and onion rings. Guy Fieri even featured them on diners, drive-ins, and dives back in 2013. But apparently, all the Food Network fame in the world can't protect you from Kansas City's insatiable appetite for parking spaces.
What happens when one of the most powerful men in music is accused of some of the most serious crimes imaginable? Check out the new podcast, Did He Do It? Following the federal sex crimes trial of Sean Diddy Combs, coming to you straight from New York City. Every day I'll take you inside the courtroom where prosecutors say Combs ran a criminal enterprise of sex trafficking, coercion, and abuse, using his fame, fortune, and influence to silence victims and control lives. We'll cover the big stories and the small moments that can shift the verdict. The trial has begun. The questions are piling up, and every day we'll be asking the same thing. Did he do it? Follow now wherever you get your podcasts.
Tired of doom scrolling? Want news that won't make you want to live in a bunker? Check out 5 Good News Stories, where they find the silver lining in a world that's usually lined with something much less pleasant. The gang at 5 Good News Stories dig through the headlines to find 5 stories that prove humanity hasn't completely lost its mind. It's pretty much the opposite of this show. From scientific breakthroughs nobody's talking about to random acts of kindness that restore your faith in humanity, all delivered with the cutting wit you deserve. 5 Good News Stories, because sometimes the news doesn't have to suck. Subscribe to 5 Good News Stories wherever you get your podcasts. Harvard Law School just discovered they've been sitting on one of the most valuable documents in history. And they bought it for $27.50 back in 1946. That's like finding out your garage sale paperweight is actually the Hope Diamond. 2 professors were scrolling through Harvard's digital archives, probably procrastinating on grading papers, when they spotted this copy of the Magna Carta. Except it turns out this wasn't a copy at all. This was the real deal from 1300, signed, sealed, and delivered by King Edward I himself. Professor David Carpenter from King's College says he was absolutely astonished that nobody knew what they had, which is academic speak for "I can't believe you people are this clueless." Harvard had been treating one of the foundational documents of Western democracy like a coffee-stained thesis in their library basement. The document was described in the original auction as somewhat rubbed and damp-stained, which is 1940s speak for looks like garbage, probably worthless. A London bookseller bought it for £42, then flipped it to Harvard for the equivalent of about $450 today. That's the kind of markup that would make a used car salesman weep with pride. Now here's where it gets really good. 2007, another Magna Carta sold for $21 million. So Harvard essentially bought a winning lottery ticket and used it as a bookmark for 78 years. The university librarians must be feeling pretty smart right about now. Oh, that old thing? Yeah, we knew it was special. We just wanted to let it marinate. The professors had to use ultraviolet light and spectral imaging to authenticate it because the document is so faded. Apparently, 800 years of storage will do that to parchment. Who knew? They checked the handwriting, the dimensions, even the exact wording, because medieval scribes were apparently more consistent than modern politicians with their campaign promises. The best part? Harvard didn't even know they had it. They've been giving campus tours for decades, showing off their law library, completely unaware they had constitutional history's equivalent of a mint-condition Mickey Mantle rookie card just sitting there in a protective frame. Professor Vincent says if you asked anyone to name the most famous document in world history, they'd probably say Magna Carta. Although, to be fair, a lot of college students would probably guess the Constitution and then panic when you ask which one. So congratulations to Harvard for accidentally being brilliant. And congratulations to those $27.50 for being the best investment in academic history, beating out even that kid who bought Bitcoin with his lunch money. Portions of today's program were made with the help of a Big D chunky monkey, whatever dirty thoughts are in your mind right now, and good old-fashioned American AI.
In Washington, D.C., power flows through information. But what happens when the most sensitive military intelligence in the world ends up on the wrong phone? In the halls of power, a national security advisor makes a fatal miscalculation. On the other side of the world, a special forces team walks into a perfectly orchestrated trap. When the dust settles, 4 American soldiers are dead, 3 more captured. And the most catastrophic intelligence breach in modern history is just beginning to unravel. Signal Lost, a 6-part podcast thriller about betrayal, courage, and the devastating consequences of a world where even our most guarded communications are never truly secure. When everyone is listening, nowhere is safe. Signal Lost. Available wherever you get your podcasts.